Good day and welcome to this Focus On segment. I'm Dewald Rademeyer. Today we put the spotlight on Africa Energy Week happening at Cape Town CTICC, and I'm joined by two guests who's going to take us through to understand what we can expect at this event. I'm joined right now by Hendrik, Malan, partner and Africa CEO of Frost & Sullivan. Hendrik, thank you for joining us. I just want to get straight into it. Next week is the Africa Energy Week. From your side, why have you decided to partner up for this event?
Well, I mean, Frost & Sullivan is very involved in the African energy industry overall. I think AEW is a great platform to help inform and connect with various stakeholders across the industry. It's very important, I think, for industry policymakers as well, in order to connect, in order to understand current dynamics. I think a lot has changed within the energy industry, I think, over the past 18 to 24 months. It's always been a pleasure to partner with them. This is not the first year that we've partnered with them. It's been a multi-year connection. So no, we always look forward to the event.
Now, Hendrik, what is so different about the event this year as to last year? Because last year, well, every year, leaders are gathering to discuss the outcome and the future of oil, gas, and energy. What is different this time around?
Well, I think the energy industry overall is at a very exciting juncture. I think the whole industry is in a very dynamic phase overall. The situation in Ukraine is really driving a renewed level of interest in Africa. Globally, I think the risk-reward ratios have really been reset to a large degree, and Africa is very much benefiting from that. A lot of interest, especially in some of the independently owned upstream assets in the region. We've seen translating in a lot of interest from some of the global investors. And we are already seeing some significant changes upstream, midstream, and downstream. And it's not just in the renewables field, but definitely also in the more traditional carbon-based feedstocks, gas in particular. Renewable investment is obviously very important for the industry. Rural electrification is not going to happen to large scale to grid power alone. But Africa can't industrialize through renewable energy alone. So we need cheaper baseload energy to balance our grids. It's important to drive these two agendas in parallel. So, that global investment component, I think, is a lot more dynamic. So the entire industry is moving at a pace that we haven't seen, I think, in many, many, many years.
How much funding do we need to move into the renewable sector? And are we looking to discard oil and gas altogether, or is gas also part of renewable energy?
Well, I guess it depends on the definition, right? I mean, Europe is obviously grappling also with the definition of whether gas should be included or not. For the first time, it's been tabled whether it should be part of the renewable energy definition. But strictly speaking, I mean, gas is still a fossil fuel, so it should most likely not be included in renewable energy, I think, according to us in any case. But, renewable energy, I don't think there's an opportunity for Africa to industrialize off the back of renewable energy, per se. It is still a relatively expensive technology. Your grids need to be balanced, with baseload and with renewables. The storage technologies are not advanced enough, and it's definitely not cheap enough for a continent like Africa, especially given the size of the geography, to rely purely on renewables. There has always been a lot of talk around leapfrogging straight into cleaner technologies, but unfortunately, most of the technologies are not mature enough. There's a lot of potential in technology like hydrogen that we're seeing, and there's a continued level of investment that we're seeing in those technologies. It's absolutely amazing. But Africa really does need to take advantage of the gas reserves that we've got and that we are seeing actually happening at the moment, in order to make sure that we can drive that industrialization process across the region.
Is this a precursor for COP27?
I think so. I think there are a number of really good, important conversations to be had leading into COP27. I always say that the quality and enforceability of policy is really critical for capital-intensive industries like energy to be able to evolve and able to move forward. And I think a couple of really critical conversations are important to have during sessions like AEW in order to make sure that the right kind of conversations are had during COP27 in Egypt in November, which is literally just a month away from now. And these two need to be, obviously, so these conversations can't be happening in isolation from each other. It's important to drive our carbon reduction conversations in parallel with sort of the broader energy and electrification conversations across the continent. Africa has a desperate need for cheap energy and electrification. Electrification stats across the continent has not improved significantly, over the last few decades, and we seriously need to start improving that.
Now, Hendrik, how can we get more information on the Africa Energy Week, and also can this be followed on social media?
Definitely. So you can find out more on aecweek.com. So on the website, there are also quite a number of different social media handles. You can follow AEW on Instagram on @AfricanEnergyWeek. On Facebook, you can follow them on @AfricanEnergyWeek as well. Twitter @real_AEW. On YouTube on Energy Chamber, and finally also on LinkedIn on AEC African Energy Week. So they're available on all the social media channels. So we're looking forward to a lot of chatter on all the platforms.
That was Hendrik Malan, partner and Africa CEO at Frost & Sullivan. I'm now joined by Magnus Nysveen, Head of Analysis at Rystad Energy. Thank you for joining me. What I want to know from you, and Africa Energy Week next week, I want to get a sense of your role at the Energy Week.
Yeah, I'm coming there as the head of analysis in Rystad Energy, one of the leading research firms on energy, everything from oil and gas to solar panels and wind. And I come there a little from outside Africa with the views on what is going on the energy transition landscape around in the world, and how these can impact Africa.
Can you give us a sense of what is happening in a just transitioning landscape, particularly in Africa? Are we getting there? Are we still behind? Are we lacking something?
Yeah, I think that before we start talking about this, I think it's just important to that everybody understands that Africa doesn't emit any carbon dioxide. It's not a part of the problem. And I think that's kind of important for us from outside to somewhat always recognize that. But the movement for energy transition around in the world is very, very strong. And it's actually stronger now within investors and maybe even the companies than the governments. The governments have been driving this, but now the investor community and the companies are actually taking a lead on the energy transition. And it's happening very fast, especially on the development of solar panels and wind, offshore wind, and the penetration of electric vehicle is also going very fast, especially in China. So this is happening on a global scale. But in Africa, it goes very slowly, and that is very unfortunate, because this could also be a solution for the energy poverty in Africa. The energy transition in itself provides more sources of energy, and Africa will need all sources of energy going forward. Both renewables and also especially natural gas will be needed going forward.
How much funding is required?
Yeah, first of all, it has been a lot of funding in oil and gas in the past, and the funding that is needed for the energy transition is not higher than the funding that we have seen in the past for oil and gas. So it is high investments, and as of today already, the investments in renewables, in wind and solar, has actually passed the investments in oil and gas. So this is going very fast. There's a lot of investments needed, Right now, it's very good returns because the cost has come down despite the last inflation that we have had over the last couple of years. The cost has come down, and the energy prices is very high now. So you have a very high return on investments in renewables, just as we speak now.
Now, with the investment high in renewables, does it mean that globally everybody is shying away from oil and gas, or does oil and gas still have a role to play in the near future?
Yeah, oil and gas will have a role to play, and that is very important to remember that, and that is also a lesson learned from the energy crisis we have in Europe now, that we have to embrace the renewables, we have to embrace everything new, but it's too early to start to break too much on, especially on the supply side of oil and gas. The demand side, we can work as much as we can to reduce the demand for oil, but we cannot start to stop on the supply side because that will create larger problems than what you actually are fixing.
Are these the kind of conversations that you're looking forward to at the Africa Energy Week?
Yes, I look very much forward to try to somewhat bridge this little gap that we see between the kind of progressive energy transition people, especially in Europe, and Africa. I think that both are right. In Africa, we need both. We have to develop all the gas fields. There should be no stranded gas in Africa. Everything is needed. But also the only way to assure energy poverty in the villages is a distributed build out of solar panels.
What are you hoping to achieve at the Africa Energy Week?
I hope to achieve that the reality of energy transition is something that everybody is aware of. But I also want to convey the message that this creates enormous opportunities for Africa, and also that it should create opportunities for creating wealth in Africa, not wealth for people outside Africa. And of course, you have wind, you have sun, you have natural resources, and you have people. The population growth should be something that should be conveyed to create a lot of value going forward. But it starts with energy. You know, the problem is that people in the villages don't have money to pay for the electricity yet. But that's why you have to use the energy to create local businesses, such that you create an economy. That is where we have to start in the villages. I think that we develop some distributed solar panels to create small manufacturing businesses, and from there you have an economic growth also in the rural areas.
Thank you to both of our guests who brought clarity on what we can expect at the upcoming event. Until next time, goodbye.